Welcome to the Prolific Pulse Poetry Podcast and YouTube. This is your host, Lisa Tomey, and I'd like to welcome Sheree Martines to our show today. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for being with us. Tell you a little bit about Sheree. She is in love with the written word. She's been a prolific writer for more than 4 decades. After writing her first poems in 3rd grade, we had that similarity, poetry became a lifelong passion, and her poetry and essays have appeared in the Fog City Poetry, the Martha Reid Poetry Review, and Women, etc. As a communications professional for almost 3 decades, Sheree has written extensively for the American Red Cross and Goodwill Industries, a contributor to NPR, and author of Rude Awakening, a 3-crime thriller. She has just completed a draft of her anthology of poems and prose. Sheree, what is your working title for your anthology?
Right now, I'm calling it Circadian Rhythm. Mm-hmm. That's a working title, but I'm leaning heavily towards it.
And what is the inspiration behind that title?
I think it's just the concept of circadian rhythm and how it impacts our lives. It's the basic I think rhythm of our lives, and that's sort of how I see my poetry. It's certainly a rhythm of my life.
Mm-hmm. Now you have a blog too called Circadian Rhythm.
Yes, it's been a highly neglected one, but as I'm working on this anthology, I am planning on expanding it sort of as a companion.
Mm-hmm. What is the theme of your anthology?
Well, that's one thing I think about in my writing, because I write about so many different things, and I also write in a number of styles. I'm not really focused on one particular style, mm-hmm. But like most poetry, it includes things about love, things about life, difficult emotions, good emotions, memories. It is deeply personal, most of it. I use a lot of imagery, but some of my writing, as I think you noticed in some of the work I sent you, it can be rather graphic, and I know some people who have read some of those things have a hard time with it. But yeah, I still write in the all the poetic themes of love, loss, major events in my life, and I do look at grief, which has been a large factor in my life, and some of the I write about some of the blacker times in my life. So it's quite a variety, a diverse variety of those kinds of.
Right. Do you find that when you're dealing with the darker times of life, that also is a parallel with the grief of things that you didn't have, the things that you lost?
Absolutely, yes. The death of my husband, the loss of the love of my life. He died in my arms, and that became the subject for a good deal of my poetry over a period of about maybe 5-10 years. It became very cathartic for me, a way to, actually, I think sometimes being able to take your thoughts and pour them onto a piece of paper
Mm-hmm.
and then massage them and sculpt them. I think that is really, as I mentioned, cathartic, and
Right.
um, it just sort of comes out. I mean, it just sort of flows when I'm writing about
Exactly.
something like that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't initially look at what style it may be in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Um, I am not a slave to rhyme. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, again, those factors certainly motivate and inspire a good bit of my writing.
Right. Right. And over the years that you started writing in third grade, have you always kept up with poetry, or is it something that's kind of come and gone with you?
Um, I, there have been a few times during my career I did not have as much time to focus on it,
Mm-hmm.
but pretty much I have written since those first juvenile poems I created in third grade. In fact, what I did, I was writing, I wanted to give my mom a Mother's Day present. So
Mm-hmm.
I wrote these poems and they were on notebook paper, and I bound them together with pink ribbon and gave them to my mom on Mother's Day. And after that, just it began to evolve throughout my life. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, although, so much of my writing has been, um, corporate writing, writing of collateral materials, essays,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, as you mentioned, I recently released a true crime chronicle, and I'm in the process of working on a memoir about my struggle with the aftermath of abuse, the devastating grief and loss, and other things. My ability to overcome and survive those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but my poetry is it's always been there. I mean, I have a tendency, I can be driving down the road, and if you look in my car, in my console, there are probably, receipts and torn pieces of paper,
Yeah.
and and I can never, I always have a notebook going, which
Uh-huh.
has thoughts and some of my feelings and little, blips of things I want to develop. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
throw anything away. I mean, I have a closet and about 20 files that are filled with these notebooks and pieces of paper
Yeah.
that may or may not become a piece of work. But
Yes.
I'm sure you know.
Oh my
You
goodness, yes. In
you
my
never
living
know.
room. Yep.
You never know when something's going to hit you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, driving down the road, one eye on the road and one eye on the paper. So anyway, but yeah, that can be the start of many of my pieces of poetry.
Absolutely. I understand. I'll hear a song on the radio. It's like it'll trigger something. And it's like, oh, got to write that down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
in my living room, but beside where I usually sit, I have all these little scraps. You know how you get all those little free notepads in the
oh,
mail?
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And I keep them stacked there, and I have grocery receipts with things written
Oh
on them.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
same here,
Oh, don't
same.
throw that away. That's got a
Oh,
idea on it.
no, I mean, there could be a masterpiece somewhere in those little jumble of words you write down. So, yes, I heard
Yeah,
you of that. But, but I have gotten some good things out of those little receipts that are
there you
scribbled
go.
on.
Yeah, you never know. That may be the one that wins you the Pulitzer Prize. You just never know.
Well, we'll see.
I've heard songwriters say, they wrote everything on scratch, and they come out with these great songs. Hey,
Right,
your
right.
stuff's there.
So you're also a poet.
Yes, ma'am, I sure am.
How long have you been
Yeah.
writing?
Since about third grade, actually.
Okay.
I started out when I was learning to read, actually reading Poe. and of all
Oh,
books. But that was in our family library, and I started reading that. And so probably why I started out with some dark ideas, but
mm.
then I read Grimm's fairy tales. Well, that wasn't any better. But in
Okay.
school, we started writing, and I picked up, what poetry really was. And in sixth grade, I had this wonderful teacher named Miss Eshelman. She's, I'm sure, long gone now. But she inspired us to write, and she was probably the real impetus for me really getting deep into it. And
That's
we did
great.
an anthology in the sixth grade. We had a sixth grade anthology of poetry with all the different Asian forms of poetry. So we learned how to do
Oh,
haiku and tanka and all those at an early age. So yeah, and it just kind of went from there. And I had scraps of stuff too that way back there that I went through and transcribed. Yeah.
right. Right, yeah. I can come across something I may have jotted down 10 years ago, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden it does spark something in me, and it's like, oh, why haven't I looked at this or worked on it? So
Mhm.
I also was influenced by Poe to some degree.
Mhm.
I'm reading an excellent book on him right now, which is called Evermore, and it
Oh.
actually it sort of explores a twist on some of his motivating factors.
Mhm.
People tend to think that he was, so dark and, spurred by some psychological darkness,
Mm-mm.
but it's not really true. I mean,
No.
so, but I loved Poe. I think some of the other poets who have really inspired me and that I love to read.
Mhm.
Dylan Thomas, far and away an incredible poet, and
Mhm.
Robert Frost.
Mhm.
Early on, I loved E. E. Cummings, and I did try to emulate his style to a degree, even to the point of not capitalizing the I in my work. So,
Mhm.
anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. I'll try. There's so many. One of the things that I started doing was taking poets, like famous poets, poetry, and reading a poem, and then writing a poem that kind of responds or aligns with the poem. So some interesting things have come from that. And for Black History Month, I've got like three of them I've done that way where I've responded to their poem. For a favorite poem of theirs was my own. Did one today for Toni Morrison, who
oh,
um,
yeah.
didn't do as much poetry as she did in writing novels, but I found some of her poems and I wrote something to respond to that. It's a lot of fun. It's a good challenge.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've done the same with Frost, trying to
Hmm.
sorry.
Okay.
But yeah. So anyway,
Yeah. Is this your writing space you're sitting in now?
yes it is. Welcome to my somewhat chaotic office.
Well, I can tell looking at your bookshelf that you're a poet because you have your thesaurus and your dictionary and the
I still
important tools.
Lisa, I still love a dictionary. I know it's easy
Mhm.
to click on or plug something into the address line and come up with a multitude of meanings, but
Yes.
I still
Hmm.
love my thesaurus,
Yeah.
which
Same here.
I've
Keep
had
it
it for
handy.
so, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but and my dictionary. I mean, they're pretty well worn, but I'll sit down and read the dictionary sometimes, just go through the
Mhm.
words. I have started what I call a collection of delicious words that I, that I often incorporate into my writing. And but
Neat.
it's fun. It's fun when you find
Yes.
a word that really has a deep meaning or can be
Hmm.
interpreted, in numerous ways. So
Yes. Do you make up your own words?
yeah, I do. I do to some degree. One thing I do a lot is fuse words
Hmm.
in my work. I mean, I will, you know, take two words and sort of fuse them, which I feel, better expresses my meaning or the imagery I'm trying to produce. So,
Absolutely. Well, speaking of poetry, how about you read one of your poems to us today?
ooh, okay. That's one thing. As long as I've been writing, Lisa, very rarely have I read my poetry to someone. So hopefully I will not trip over too many
Don't
of
worry.
my work.
Don't worry about it if you do. I had to get past that myself with reading out loud, and over the years, especially with starting to do open mics and stuff, I had to learn to get past that and found
Right.
out it can be a lot of fun.
That's one thing I have wanted to do is, start doing some open mics and,
Hmm.
getting out and, I don't know about a poetry slam. I'm not sure I quite understand that, but that's something else I want to look into. But I will begin with a piece of work I call Seasons.
Okay.
Excuse me. Hydrangeas boast pendulous blue blooms, gardenia's pungent pleasure is caught upon the air, suffused into the viscous heat. Summer comes, and air conditioners hum. I sweat, tilling the earth, and pull up weeds determined to smother my tomatoes growing tall. Fall's first scarlet leaf spirals down upon the murky pond, although creamy roses bloom upon their thorny stems. A crisp breeze sweeps about and tickles the pink pinched upon my cheeks. I draw my sweat around me as the sun sinks, sucking away its warmth, and the gods paint trees gold and red along the lilac skyline. Gray dawn spills upon a silent, shimmering world, stilled and chilled by crystal glaze, prisms, and diamond dust. Quartz-encrusted cedar boughs bend to graze the glassy grass. Inside, the fire is a fury, licking at oak hewn only yesterday. I reach to feel the embers that ease the complaints of well-worn bones. Winter slipped away, somewhere between that last log on the fireplace and a short-sleeved t-shirt. Suddenly, one morning, the azaleas were a fiery coral, and the dogwood was bedecked in holy white. I never got my tulips planted. Maybe then I would have noticed the imminence of spring. Life is but a second, and the seasons come so fast. When did I become an old woman?
I love it. It really appeals to the senses. You bring in so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love all the different colors and the textures, and yeah, I can picture the flowers, picture the blooms. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank
Do you
you
have
so
a
much.
lot of poems like that are about nature?
Yes, I do. I do enjoy writing about nature. It has such an impact on us, and awe-inspiring. To me. I
Hmm.
mean, and it can be anything. Um, Even a brutal storm can possess beauty,
Hmm.
and just all you have to do is look around. What's around you, and you know, nature just speaks so loudly to me.
Yes, it does.
And definitely, as I mentioned earlier, um, I do include a lot of imagery in my
Hmm.
poetry.
Yes,
Uh,
I can see that. It's very vivid. I really like that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You put a lot of work into your poetry, I can tell.
Well, sometimes, Lisa, it just pours out. I
Hmm.
mean, it'll just pour out onto the page. And then, of course, I'll go back and, look at things and try to determine what words will better capture what I'm
Hmm.
thinking about and, spend time really looking at that.
Hmm.
Then there are other times, I mean, I actually, well, what I said earlier, most of my poetry just flows out. I mean, I'll start
Right.
writing, but I started a new poem last week, and I think it's going to be a good poem, but I am really struggling with it, and that's unusual. But maybe it'll make for an award-winning poem.
You never know.
I don't know, but anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know as a poetry editor, sometimes, I help people get over those bumps in the road, but it's a poem that's meant to be written and it'll come to you as
Right.
it's supposed to.
Right, exactly. I'll need you to take a look at some of my work, and because to me, poetry really doesn't have any hard and fast rules. I mean, my style changes from poem to poem. I'm not, I don't force rhyme. Some of my poems do not rhyme at all,
Right.
except for maybe some internal rhyme, as in the one I just read.
Right.
And then sometimes it does seem to flow naturally. But again, this one I'm working on, it's challenging me. I mean, I know the theme behind it, but I have a page that's got more strike throughs than I think words, but I'll get there.
Yeah, and save those pages you stroked through, that you did the strike through on, because there might be still something in there that'll be a piece to another poem.
Don't worry, I don't throw away anything.
Yeah, I remember one of the ladies in my freelance group, she said, she may change something 10 times over, but she doesn't throw away in any of the parts because they may become another story.
Exactly, or it may be something that can be used later on. Maybe it didn't fit into the thought pattern you were laying, but it could be something that is crafted as you continue to write. So I'm with you. Don't throw it away.
Sometimes you start out a sonnet and you end up with a haiku. You just never know where it's going to go.
Well, that's quite a contrast. A sonnet to a haiku.
Because this is what I was really trying to say. I could just say it this many syllables and not, 14 lines or whatever.
Well, that's another thing about my poetry. Some of it may only be 5 lines and very short. I haven't written anything like Dante's Inferno or sonnets like Shakespeare, but a lot of my poetry, it just seems I can capture something in just a few lines, with metaphor and that. So
yeah,
it's all, like I said, it's all over the place. Oh, and one thing I mentioned, I'm working on I don't like to call it a memoir, but I am working on a book, as I said earlier, about some of my major struggles in life and how I survived and thrived. And in it, because I have such a body of work about the feelings and the things that happened to me early in my life, I do include poetry that captures, for example, that particular chapter. So, hopefully this manuscript will be, I hope it will interest some publishers, and I'd really like to get it published, because I think it can make a real difference in the lives of others who have experienced some of the things, and it really blends well with the what I talk about in the chapter, and then it's sort of encapsulated in a piece of poetry that ends the chapter.
Right.
So.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds like you have a dog.
Oh, that's Lou. That's
Lou.
He's a
You
bar-
have
he's
something he wants to say.
well, he's a barky dog when my husband leaves, so he has severe anxiety.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, he
but
misses his daddy.
yeah, he does. It's sort of, when I go to the store, no problem. He goes to the store, he gets out the door, and the barking begins. Sort of hurts my feelings a little bit.
Oh,
So
oh,
anyway,
yeah. You were talking about the different links and that I have some poems that I wrote that are 14 words long. That it's part of the
I,
14 words for love.
I,
It's there was a negative connotation with 14 words that were written for negativity, and so as a fight against that movement, it was created the 14 words for love to fight against the negativity in society. So I've been a part of this group for quite a while, and when I did my book, I put some of the 14 words for love in there, and some of the feedback I've gotten are those 14 words are more powerful in a lot of ways because you pack a lot into those words that you choose.
I would
Yeah,
love to read that.
yeah. I'll have to send that to you.
It'd be great.
Yeah, I will do that.
I wouldn't mind you looking at some of my work either. If you're a
Oh,
poetry,
sure, be glad to. Yeah,
um,
be glad to.
even though you know, my writing is in essay or book format,
Hmm.
in my poetry, I throw grammar to the wind.
Yeah,
I
yeah. We break all the rules.
and I found it important how grammar, punctuation to be more precise,
Hmm.
affects the way a person reads the poem. You
Yeah.
know, there aren't always periods at the end of a line, and that's because
Hmm.
the thought is continues into the next line. I am so sorry.
It's okay. That's just part of life.
Oops. All right. They can wait.
No problem. So, well, how about you read another one of your poems for us?
All right. Now this one is one where
Hmm.
the rhyme really came naturally to me for the most part. And I wrote this after my husband's death, which had a major impact on my life. This is something I wrote following my husband's death. It's called Ice.
Okay.
Gray trees rise frozen lonely from a landscape of ash and snow, sentenced to endless winter where Arctic shards bitterly blow away my crimson days of pleasure with love so long ago. Quickly comes Christmas. My friends must hurry home, sad, relieved, retreating to the lives that are their own. Well meaning are well meaning are their whispers. She needs her time alone. The glacial space wraps round me, the mantle of my pain. No spring could ever warm to thaw this icy bleak terrain. A snow-blind soul and mementos are all that now remain. The heavens hear me cursing, broken and bereft. How could meteoric brilliance be burned up by cold death? This is not the life I'd chosen, just the one I have been left. Your life force still has passion, blood fused in my brain. Your memory is a moment entwined with joy and pain, reminding me I'll never touch your blessed face again. The blizzard wind screams a refrain that chills me through and through. I never will recover from the fire of loving you. I never will recover.
Straight from the heart.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Particularly like The heavens hear me cursing, broken and bereft. How could meteoric brilliance be burned up by cold death? I really like those lines.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Highly emotional poem.
Yeah, a contrast there. A contrast of, there was all this vivacious life and it's gone.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant how you put that.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've got chill bumps.
Well, it's a very personal account of my grief, I think.
Mm-hmm. And how many years ago was that?
He died in 94.
94.
It's been a long time. We had 12 wonderful years together, and his death was very sudden. He basically died in my arms. He had a massive heart attack, and I did everything I could. I mean, CPR, but the doctor said it was just that he was pretty much dead the minute, you know. So, but there was a great deal of mourning, and it did take a long time, with grief.
Yes.
You can't ignore it. You can't try to go over it. Can't try to go around it. You just have
process.
You plunge yourself into it and let it have its way with you.
Yep.
So, but as I was going to say, fortunately, I have reached a point where I celebrate Paul's life more than I mourn it, and I think that's the way he would want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's still in my heart.
Yeah. I understand that. And I looked at when my mother passed, I looked at pictures of her when she was my age.
Right.
And realized how happy she was. I was just a little baby toddling around. And, I thought, she was happy then. She'll want me to be happy too.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean I didn't grieve a lot, but it helped me kind of get it in perspective.
I'm sure I understand that, and I know Paul led a wide open, joyous life, and I know he wants me doing that too, and I'm trying.
Yeah, and you found love, and so good for you.
Joy is much more a part of my life than it was when I was younger.
Yeah. We find a lot of things change as we get older, I think.
Exactly. And I'm a believer in the phrase choose joy,
Absolutely. Me too. It's actually my middle name for a reason.
Joy. I like that.
Yeah. Actually, that's why my mother gave that to me. She wanted me to have that mindfulness about it. So
right.
I respect that.
That's great. That's great.
Now you have another poem for us?
I have one more here.
Okay.
Let me see. This is one that has been published. It's called Hearts. Oh, I like your mug. Wonder Woman.
Thank you.
It's called Hearts in the Half Moon. Cheshire smile hangs cockeyed upon a black and smoky canvas, throws subtle light on misty trail. The maiden finds her way. Over rocks and ruts and branches low, she dips and bends, a ribbon woven over the path, tied to her lover's heart. She has no fear, she feels him near, her breast a cadence beating. Now breathless in her joy, she sees their hidden place of meeting. A shadow shifts and pulls her close. The air is passion laden. Cocooned in reverent arms, he lays her upon the earth. Their murmurs rise, some into sounds the midnight creatures make. Bared flesh becomes a ghostly glow upon a bed of moss. Side by side, and palm to palm. Soft lips brush sweetly lips, and eyes to eyes like heaven's stars that fall across the sky. Small minutes and small hours, emotions, secrets swell. The songstress sings, time is short, and dawn will soon reveal infinite love, branded bright, as holy souls hold tight. A parting promise, this journey made, gone into the night.
Oh, wow. That was extremely powerful vision of the lovers, and I love it.
I sort of, when I finished it, I sort of thought, sort of like Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
Their
Yeah.
meetings and things like that, but it was fun to write.
I want to share my screen and show your, find it here. 1 second. I got to get to the correct screen. Bear with me. Okay, here we go. I want to show your book, Rude Awakening. I know it's not a book of poetry, but I think it's the same. I want to share that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And yes, I had explained to you in our email that I'm working on helping someone with a true crime novel about their father's murder. And so I'm looking forward to reading this book to get some ideas.
Well, it's on its way to you. It's coming media mail, but you should get it in about 8 days, I would say.
Okay.
And I want to know what you think about it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to reading it, and I'll be sure to do a review on it as well.
Well, thank you.
And there any questions I haven't asked you that you'd like to speak to?
Well, you've done a good job. Just I think people should understand. I think sometimes writers are intimidated by poetry, thinking, oh, there are all these rules you have to follow. There has to be a distinct style, but that's not true. I'm a big believer in free form writing, just letting the words flow out onto a page. And, I think it's important for someone who really does want to write poetry to just, follow their own, voice, and doesn't have to rhyme. You don't have to be a slave to rhyme. As I mentioned before, grammar and punctuation, you have a lot of poetic license there. So
yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I break every rule there is, I think, before I'm done. But
so anyway, but those are just some things I would say to someone who is intimidated about writing.
Absolutely.
And then of course reading poetry, I think it exposes you to new ideas and
absolutely
different ways of crafting your work. So I don't think anyone should be intimidated by it. Just pick up a pen and start torturing that paper with it.
Exactly.
But I do have to have my anthology fully compiled in the next month, and I am at work on another project, as I mentioned, but I hope to get that published, or at least I might self-publish it. So, I hope there will be interest for that type of work out there.
Yes. Well, I look forward to reading, both your anthology and your memoir, or journal of life, or journey of life, however you want to call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't like memoir, but I like that journey of life. That's certainly what it is. And I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity. I haven't really talked a lot with other people about my work.
Yeah.
And, you know, I
Well, we
think
tend to be isolated in our what we do.
exactly. So, but maybe, you know, this will give me an opportunity to help other people, you know, learn a lot about me.
There you go.
So, but thank you so much for having me, Lisa.
Well,
This has
thank you
been
so
fun.
much.
It's been fun.
Yes, it's been nice to meet you.
You take good care, and I'll
You
be
as
in touch.
well. All right, you have a good day.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.